Hey guys, it's Mrs. Sauceda. I'm just going to read this reading to you guys. 4 ways to remove sod. When starting a bed, choose the method that suits you best. So this is pretty much how do we remove grass so that we can create a garden, or how do we remove grass that's inside my garden, which is the issue that we're having here in our garden at the school. So if you're thinking about turning an area of lawn into a garden bed, your first steps will be to get rid of the grass. You can take different routes to accomplish this. Those that yield quick results can require considerable effort, while less laborious-intensive methods may take at least a season to produce results. Here are 4 techniques for turning a well-established turf into a bed ready for planting. Each method has its pros and cons, but all will get you one step closer to the bed you've been dreaming of. So some of these will be hard, some of these will be easier, some will take a long time, and some will work really quickly. So number 1, dig. We can dig. This method produces quick, clean results and allows you to plant in your garden immediately. But using a spade or fork to remove sod can result in a lot of sweat and sore muscles. If the sod is in good condition, you can use it elsewhere in your yard. So how do we do this? First, you want to water the area a few days ahead of time to make the soil easier to work. The soil should not be moist, the soil should be moist but not soggy. Saturated soil is not only heavy but also susceptible to compaction, which leads to poor plant growth. So you don't ever want to dig in wet soil. Moist soil, not wet or soggy soil. Cut the sod into parallel strips, 1 foot wide using an edge or sharp spade. These strips can be cut into 1 to 2 foot lengths depending on the density of the turf and the thickness of the pieces. Then you're going to pry up one end of the sod and slide the spade or fork under it, cut through the deep roots, and then lift out the piece, making sure to include the roots. If the underside of the sod contains much loose soil, a fork may work best, as the soil can be shaken back onto the surface when the sod is lifted. And sod is just another way of saying our grass. So after we lift up this grass, we can kind of shake off the dirt so we can save our dirt. And then you're going to roll it up. If you skip the crosscut step, keep peeling the strip back. Keep in mind that though these rolls will be heavy, if you are installing a large bed, consider renting a sod cutter. These steel-bladed plow-like tools are more efficient than spades for large jobs. They come in human and gas-powered models. Next, you're going to inspect your bed's subsoil and the underside of the sod if it will be reused. Once the sod is gone, look and destroy potential pests such as larvae of May and June beetles. Remove any rocks and clumps of grass and any sizable roots. So there is a drawback to this. It says one drawback to sod removal is that the significant loss of organic material, which greatly contributes to the health of plants. It must be restored as compost, as aged manure, or in some other form. Usually, topsoil must also be replaced. Some of it may be shaken out of the sod that was removed, but you'll probably need more. So after you dig up all the grass, we're going to be taking a lot of that dirt that's stuck onto the roots and taking that out of the garden. So we're going to have to add more topsoil or compost or manure to make up for the stuff that we took. So the pros of this, it permits immediate planting, avoids using any kind of chemicals or power tools. But this is labor intensive, that's our cons. It's really hard work. And sometimes it can expose the subsoil to weed seeds because it takes away the vegetative cover. So there's no grass, so now the weed seeds can finally start to grow. And then it removes our organic matter. We're taking out the dirt and the bugs and stuff like that sometimes. So tip, make sure you're sharpening your tools before using them. And then minimize your muscle and joint strain by using an ergonomically designed tool of the appropriate length and grip. So when we're doing this, we want to make sure we're using the appropriate tools so we don't have to break our backs. Another option is called to till. Now this you can break up sod with a tiller, which requires some muscle, but most of the work is done by the engine. Small tillers can usually handle previously worked gardens, but breaking up a well-established sod requires a heavier unit and may require more than one pass. After tilling the bed, remove and shake the soil and any remaining clumps of grass. So one advantage of tilling is that the original organic matter is retained in the garden as the sod is turned under. You can add organic matter by forking or shoveling compost, manure, grass clippings, or leaf mold onto the sod before tilling. A tilled bed can be planted immediately, but the process brings to surface weed seeds that may germinate and cause problems later. So when you till, you're releasing all these little seeds, and then the weeds will start to grow. You may also wind up propagating some weeds, which can send up a new shoot from the small pieces of its chopped up rhizome. Canada thistle does the same thing with its severed lateral roots. If you keep the soil moist and delay planting for a couple of weeks, you can pull, hoe, or otherwise dispatch these weeds as they emerge. So, in other words, you could plant in it, but maybe you want to wait until the soil dries out, and you can pull all those weeds as they're growing before you start planting your garden, because you don't want them to be growing weeds around your garden. So the pros of this: we can retain organic matter. It's quicker and easier than just digging by hand. And then you can do immediate planting after you till. Just watch out for the weeds, because cons, it's difficult on rocky sites. So if you have any rocks and you don't really want to till, that's kind of hard. It's difficult in wet or clay soils. And then here it says it turns up weed seeds. So a lot of weed seeds, and it can propagate weed seeds. And we learned about propagation. So we don't really want to be propagating our weeds in our garden, right? So tip, it says large tillers can be harder to maneuver. You will likely need to carve the edge of your new bed with a spade or edger, especially if the border is curved. The third way to get rid of the grass is to smother it. Perhaps the easiest way to eliminate grass is to smother it using plastic, newspaper, or cardboard. Depending on the time of year and the material used, this can take up to several months. So this will take a long time to do. Stretch light excluding plastic over the lawn. With edges securely anchored, the temperature under the plastic will increase dramatically. High temperatures and lack of light will eventually kill the grass, although they can also destroy beneficial organisms. Plastic can be covered for aesthetic purposes, but it isn't biodegradable and should be removed eventually. And then this shows us a picture. Several layers of newspaper will block out light, causing the grass to die. A few months later, the soil will be ready for planting. So this is what I did in my backyard. And this is, we're doing that on part of our garden in the school garden, just on part of it. Lay cardboard or newspaper over the grass as a better alternative. So you don't have to use plastic, you can use cardboard or newspaper. Cover these biodegradable materials with grass clippings, leaf mold, mulch, or compost to hold the layers in place. Keep in moisture and add organic matter. Lay down 6 to 8 inches of newspaper. Use paper printed with black and white ink only, as colored ink may contain heavy metals. Newspaper and cardboard do not increase temperature as much as plastic, but they eliminate the light, causing chlorophyll to break down. Once this happens, the photosynthesis stops and the smothered plants will die. So this is not a quick, but an easier way to kill the grass off, but it's not quick. It takes a while. And then you can plant right away if you're using cardboard or newspaper. You can just dig into the cardboard and newspaper and then put your plant directly into the hole, into the underlying soil. So pros, this does not require the physical effort of removing or turning undersod. It leaves the original organic matter in place, and it doesn't disrupt the soil structure. Cons, this delays planting up to several months, and it may kill beneficial organisms if you're using plastic. So maybe plastic wouldn't be as good to use as newspaper or cardboard. Tip, lay down newspaper layers during the summer and wet them to help keep them in place. The following spring, the grass should be dead, and much of the organic matter you added will be incorporated into the soil by earthworms and other organisms. And that's pretty much what we have been trying to do over the summer in the school garden. But our weeds have grown through the newspaper, through the mulch, and through our plastic. Here's our last option to get rid of grass. You can apply herbicides. So it says here under the picture, herbicides kill grass quickly, but it's often unclear what else they do in the soil. Some herbicides affect all plants, but others kill grass only, so choose wisely. It says, I favor the other three methods, perhaps because I see immediately any damage I cause, slicing through an earthworm with a spade, for example. Too often in our dealings with nature, unanticipated effects of chemicals use have been discovered only later. So these chemicals will affect the garden later. Choose an appropriate product. Be careful. It says carefully follow the directions on the label if you decide to use herbicide to kill grass. Be sure to buy a product designed to kill grass, not one specific to broadleaf plants, and check the expiration date, okay? Expiration, chemicals can expire. Don't apply herbicides when rain is expected, or they may wash off plants and into the soil and nearby waterways. Also, avoid applying on windy days to prevent drift into nearby plantings. Wear protective clothing such as gloves, long sleeves, long pants, and a mask when applying herbicides. Well-established turf may require more than one application. It takes several days for effective absorption. Grass and weed seeds in the soil will not be affected and can still germinate later. This option may be reasonable if you have an appropriate equipment and follow safety instructions and application recommendations carefully. So pros, what's good about this? It's relatively simple and quick for gardeners experienced using herbicide, and it makes it easier to remove or turn the grass. So cons, you can injure or kill nearby plants. It can cause environmental contamination. You could personally hurt yourself, personal injury or harm. But also harm to beneficial organisms, such as our worms and our bees and things like that. So tip, follow the label's directions carefully, including those for product storage and disposal. Use only products specifically formulated for the types of plants you want to kill. Okay, so now that we've read this, you're going to do your sentence frames and summarize the 4 ways that we can get rid of our grass in the school garden. And then you're going to tell me for your exit ticket which one do you think we should use.